On January 18th, 2022, Blue Dragon's Any% speedrun was destroyed by a speedrunner named Palmer, clocking in at 5 hours, 36 minutes, and 53 seconds, and beating out the old record by nearly 13 minutes. A massive achievement that was only possible thanks to the item I showed off in the thumbnail. The black belt is an extremely useful piece of equipment that has many positive effects for the speedrun. Unfortunately, with these benefits, there's also the absurdly low 1.6% chance to finish a run. To understand these effects and chances, we need to look at the strategies that were developed years before Palmer started taking on this behemoth of a challenge. Back in late 2016, runners of the whole game were basically non-existent, with the barrier to entry being an unoptimized run and the length being nearly 10 hours at the time. A runner by the name of Old School Richard grabbed the record on December 31st of 2016 with a time of 9 hours, 44 minutes, and 15 seconds. The goal of this run is to take on all 33 bosses and complete the game as fast as possible. This used occasional points of grinding to bring characters up to level with some of the areas that were being taken on, and required a bit of luck to do fast. This run would stay at the top for nearly half a year, but something was brewing in the background. Someone knew this could be done more efficiently, but the question was how, and even more importantly, who? A speedrunner by the name of Odonishi, who has had experience in many different games, dabbled in doing speedruns of Blue Dragon for quite some time. Like most people back in the early 2010s, who opted to do segmented runs of longer games, he did the same. Back in 2013 and onward from there, he did Disc 1 runs off and on, with his full completed run happening in July of 2017. With his first full run, he had quite a few hiccups and issues, mainly involving the reroute compared to Richard's run. Thanks to some strategies from a runner named Laponier36 and a Disc 3 segmented run, Odonishi was able to bring them into the fold of a full game run. About halfway through the run, there's an optional boss called the Corrosive Poo. Now normally one wouldn't want to fight a boss like this, but he drops the very important black belt. This equipment does a couple of incredible things for a speedrun. First, it doubles the XP obtained for battles. We'll talk about how that's used in just a bit. Second, the belt cuts all elemental damage taken in half. This is extremely useful for late game enemies and bosses, making them a lot less deadly than they normally would be. In this run that Odonishi did, he needed to steal 4 of these for his party, and this is where these crazy chances started to come into play. It's not exact, but Palmer calculated that there's about a 5% chance to steal the black belt. You can only steal 1 item from an enemy, so if you fail, you have to flee and reset. Now in a normal situation, you would only be able to steal 1 black belt and be done with it, but if you save after stealing and fleeing, then reset, you can reset the instance of battle and are able to steal another. Another feature of this route that saved time is getting the barrier class up to level 21 and obtaining the spell Heal Barrier 2, which instantly defeats weaker enemies in the overworld, making SP grinding much easier after it's obtained. There are other classes used from the 9 available, but we'll talk about some of those later on. As a result of needing the spell though, the EXP and SP routes are incredibly tight in the run, allowing for basically no character deaths on bosses and leaving a risk for major time loss. Gold is also tight in this run due to other equipment and items that are needed to progress, and the random chance that bosses drop 0 gold. Unfortunately, as another instance of craziness in this game, all drop gold amounts are random to an extent as well, and low amounts require backups of picking up and selling items. With it being Odonishi's first run, you'd think that it'd take a few tries to take down Richard's time. What many people don't realize is that Odonishi is a legendary speedrunner of iconic games like Sonic 2006 and Tulip. His final time for his first run was a 7 hour, 47 minute, and 18 second time, absolutely demolishing the previous record by nearly 2 hours. The best thing about this is the run wasn't even that good according to Odonishi. The mistakes that were mentioned earlier, combined with the slow black belt grind of about 30 minutes, held this run back at the time. But wait a minute though, isn't the new record much faster than this? Looking at his time compared to Palmer's 5:36, there's a lot to cut out. So what are we missing here? Well, for one, the Xbox One X dropped, and Microsoft's massive backwards compatibility project gave Blue Dragon a massive load time buff. This, combined with some small battle optimizations, brought the time down more to around the 6-hour mark in 2019. However, the real changes wouldn't start until later on in 2020. On September 10th, 2020, Odonishi had an incredible realization where it was viable to obtain the double cast ability from the support magic class in a run, allowing for massive damage output and making bosses that used to be huge pain points basically harmless. This allowed for something called the triple double cast route, which is much faster than the previous route. Not only did this make several parts of the run more consistent, it dropped the amount of black belts needed from 4 to 3, which doesn't seem like much, but is actually huge thanks to it cutting out a fourth of the black belt grind. How the classes in this route basically work is the first hour or so works with an assassin as a tank, then 2 to 3 characters being black mages. After that, until the end of disc 1, the party goes to all mages. Finally, after getting a guardian to tank, it goes back to that and mages for the rest of the run. Using these improvements and a bit of a grind, Odonishi was able to bring the time down to under 6 hours with a 5-hour, 55-minute, and 21-second run on the date mentioned earlier. He knew this could be pushed much further, but unfortunately there was another problem. There are 5 battles that are basically a coin flip to die on before even getting to the black belt grind in the middle of the run. This means that runs can just end before the major RNG section of the run. Something had to be done about this, right? Even after Odonishi got his record, he wanted it to go further, but being subjected to the horrible randomness that the game offered was a major deterrent to that goal. However, with most things in speedrunning, all it takes is a fresh set of eyes, the willingness to meticulously test random things for science, and most importantly, an entire pot of coffee to keep those spirits up. Palmer had arrived, and he was about to change everything. If any of you all have been around the mainstream RPG speedrunning space, then you'll know Palmer from his exploits with games like Baldur's Gate 3, Septerracore, and many more. His interest in the game started with him running one of his favorite games, Ni no Kuni: Wrath of the White Witch, and eventually him realizing it was fairly similar thanks to one of his friends, Lena, who was running the game at the time. What really sealed the deal was when he was chilling on the couch one day, flipping through TV shows, and he found the Blue Dragon anime airing at the time. So with the power of God and anime on his side, he started looking into the game and realized it was an absolute mess of a route compared to how optimized it could be. Odonishi did an amazing job at rerouting for the black belts in the triple double cast route, but it needed that cherry on top. Over the next year, up until October 15th, 2021, Palmer got to work doing research and rerouting with a crack team of runners. While Palmer was bashing his head against the wall of different boss fights, other runners such as Mega Drago 88 dumped the game's code, and Silver Latias worked hard to translate it. Apparently the game's code is entirely in Japanese, and it happens more often than one would think. Back to the routing and changes, did you know that there are approximately 3,500 objects that can be picked up in the game? The previous route used some of these, but Palmer worked in a few more to make fights like Icefire Wolf Ghost more consistent. Speaking of consistency, remember those 5 bosses that I said were coin flips earlier? Palmer found a way to exploit each of their AIs to make the battles 100% consistent, basically making the run up until the black belt grind much easier. There's still a chance to lose a run before the grind, but it's much less of a chance than what the previous route had. Sadly, he didn't find any way to make the grind itself better, but this allows the grind to have a little bit of leniency. This means that 15 to 20 minutes are allowed for farming black belts overall before having to reset. Given his calculations, the chances of getting 3 within 20 minutes is about 17%, if the chances for the steal are 5%. Overall, a chance of him losing a run at black belt comes up to a whopping 98.4% with his current 1.6% completed run rate. Thankfully though, the grind didn't take him too long. As mentioned at the beginning of the video, he obtained an incredible time just a week ago, beating his own record by almost 13 minutes. Defying the odds in a speedrun like this is a test of will, knowledge, and even sanity at times. While some games feature precise platforming and frame-perfect tricks to take them down as fast as possible, it's refreshing to see games that require more brain power than outright skill to master. Even though the randomness is still present and most runs won't make it to the end on a world record pace, Odonishi, Palmer, and many other members of the community were able to greatly mitigate the overall risk and nearly have the time of the run in the past half-decade. Honestly, with the craziness of this game, who knows where it's going to end up in the next 5 years. If you all enjoyed this video and want me to keep making videos on obscure RPG speedruns, please consider supporting my Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, You can get your name memorialized for all of eternity at the end of my videos, early access to upcoming topics, and even help me pay my rent. Stay hydrated, folks, and thanks for watching.